again, folks. It is Wednesday night. It's 7 o'clock. And Vaughn and I are here to talk to you a little bit tonight about, this is our regular monthly meeting. I'm going to give it a couple of seconds here, see if we get anybody to kind of join us in the room here. And while we wait, I'm taking a sip of wine.
Ooh, classy Scott.
I don't drink wine often. It's in a beer mug, Beck's beer. But I made
Classy.
some fish stew the other day
Oh,
with some scallops and shrimp and crab and a little bit of white wine. Well, now I got a bottle of white wine and it's been sitting in the fridge for a couple of days, and before it goes bad,
that's right.
I'm going to consume it. So, one of the
Nice.
rare times you will see me with alcohol. There's some white wine for you
There you go, classy Scott. And I forget
tonight.
that you're quite the chef.
Yes, I love to cook. I really do like to cook. I make almost all the meals here at home unless we go out. And I watch a lot of different cooking shows and try and apply some of that knowledge that I learned.
Awesome.
All right, let me go ahead and click around here on a couple of these buttons and make sure I know where I'm at.
Yeah, and I'll be
Thank you
sharing
for
on our
bringing
on
up
Facebook.
our first banner, which is Welcome to the South Carolina Cannabis Conversation. As always, all of our meetings are an environment of education and awareness and are not an open market for the sale, purchase, or distribution of cannabis. And we do not encourage or condone illegal behavior of any kind. Always our best place to start. And while I am starting, we used to kind of talk about not following the comments on our YouTube stream, which now we do. So if you're following on YouTube and or Facebook, you feel free to comment and join the conversation as we go along tonight. Also, if you are on Instagram, don't forget to follow South Carolina NORML and follow Vaughn. She'd like you to follow her page as well. Is it a page on Instagram? I guess so. Account, channel, something.
One of those grams.
One of those things. I do not have it listed on this particular thing either, but also don't forget to visit our YouTube channel and subscribe over there and click that bell notification button so that you can be notified when our live streams are starting or if there's a new one and you happen to be away at the time. All that kind of fun stuff. Thank you very much for the hey there from Josh. Very good to see you joining us again, Josh. Always appreciate your participation. Okay, let me see if I can get back on track here. Well, I'm hesitating a little only because I'm so used to with our old system giving it a couple minutes before we'd start talking. Now we give it 30 seconds. Boom! We're ramped. We're ready
We're
to
we are in there. We get it.
go. We hit it. Yeah.
Yep.
And
And check
so,
out the peeps that are on time. This is awesome.
yes, we've got some folks join us. Hey, Cass. Hello, Ina's with us again tonight. Hi, Ina. Here we go. Woohoo! And of course, all we're going to be talking about tonight, if you don't already know, it is the second Wednesday of the month. This is the normal time for us to go over our normal chapter meeting and not the stylized new concept of our conversations that we have. It was a way for us to kind of stop having the our meeting on a separate day. People were getting confused what was when. So our main format tonight is going to be our old meeting format. First up, national news. So let me see if I can click on the right banner here and find that button. There we go. We're gonna find this other button. And first thing up on this one, obviously, this happened the day after our last podcast. President Biden released a statement. Here we go. Present button, share screen, blah, 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 Chrome tab, statement. There we go. Boom! Boom. What am I cooking?
Emerald's got
Boom.
bam, you've got boom.
Yeah.
You're
Boom.
gonna boom.
So I'm getting a little excited here, folks. There is our statement, and I'll drop the link for that down here into the chat. That should come out to you all there. A statement came out last October 6th, this past week, just after our last meeting. Statement from President Biden on marijuana law reform. We're going to go over the statement completely real quick here because there isn't a whole lot to it. And it's pretty impactful overall. Could it be more? Could it be better? We'll talk about that as the conversation progresses. But let me go ahead and start off with right at the very top. I'll quote this as I often said during my campaign for president, no one should be in jail just for using or possessing marijuana. Sending people to prison for possessing marijuana has upended too many lives and incarcerated people for conduct that many states no longer prohibit. Criminal records for marijuana possession have imposed needless barriers to employment, housing, educational opportunities. We talk about that stuff a lot. And while white and black and brown people use marijuana at similar rates, black and brown people have been arrested, prosecuted, and convicted at disproportionate rates. Today I'm announcing 3 steps that I am taking to end this failed approach. I'm going to applaud that first little bit right off the top. I'm old. I kind of remember, and I was not a consumer when Richard Nixon was prohibiting cannabis, but it was probably not long after, a year or so later, creating the Controlled Substances Act. So I never really expected to see this in my lifetime. I think this is a great first step. Which camera do I have here? That one up there. But again, we'll talk a little bit more about that as we move on. First, I'm announcing a pardon of all prior federal offenses of simple possession of marijuana. I have directed the Attorney General to develop an administrative process for the issuance of certificates of pardon to eligible individuals. There are thousands of people who have prior federal convictions for marijuana possession who may be denied employment, housing, and educational opportunities as a result. My action will help relieve the collateral consequences arising from these convictions. Another thing I'd really love to see him do is immediately lift pre-employment cannabis testing, but that's not in here at the moment. Second, I am urging all governors to do the same with regard to state offenses. I'm going to pause a second there and just remind you that we're in South Carolina. Just as no one should be in federal prison solely due to the possession of marijuana, no one should be in a local jail or state prison for that reason either. Our president said that. I mean, I'm pretty psyched. That's exciting to hear. Thirdly, and I find this section of it probably the most important, and again, we'll talk a little bit more about this stuff. I'm asking the Secretary of Health and Human Services and the Attorney General to initiate the administrative process to review expeditiously how marijuana is scheduled under federal law. Federal law currently classifies marijuana as Schedule 1 of the Controlled Substances Act, the classification meant for the most dangerous substances. I love to emphasize that. This is the same schedule as for heroin and LSD, and even higher than the classification for fentanyl and methamphetamine, the drugs that are driving our overdose epidemic. Said by a government official of any kind. I'm kind of stunned.
Yeah. It's major. This announcement in general is major, but yes. You're right. There's some nuggets in here that are like, holy shoot. He said what?
You said that out loud?
Right.
That
Right.
wasn't your indoor voice?
Right. Exactly.
Finally, as federal and state regulation of marijuana changes, important limitations on trafficking, marketing, and underage sales should stay in place. Too many lives have been upended to our failed approach to marijuana. It's time that we right these wrongs. So, yeah, I'm going to kind of give it a little
A
applause.
little slow clap. A little slow
A little
clap.
slow clap for that. Yeah. Uh, it's funny because I think the day after, or even it could have even been later that day, I sat in on a Virginia NORML call. I think it was a Zoom type stream, but sat in on one of those and happened to comment um, about time, Joe, and they got kind of a kick out of that because yeah, it's not like it's the first 100 days or anything like that, and this is something that should have happened long ago under other presidents, or never
Yeah.
happened at all. Is really the truth of the matter. So
Agreed.
it's big news, big news. I am going to take a second here just see if anybody has made any comments about it yet, and I see nothing down in the comment section so
Yeah, I
far.
am. I am curious about, and I'll put this question in the comments too. Is how are you all feeling about this? Like, what are some of the biggest takeaways that you've had? And so I'll kind of put that in here while Scott's still doing his thing because I'm curious.
All right, I need to. Oh, what the heck did I do? Apparently, I need to change how I'm sharing here.
I think too that it's pretty something that I think is there's a lot of things about this that are monumental, but and I know that you'll get to this, so I'm not gonna touch too much on this, but I am so eager to just comment about the ask to the governors, the ask to the governors to make a move to follow suit, and it's interesting, especially in South Carolina, because our um legislature seems to be so heavily influenced by law enforcement, and law enforcement's big thing, and a lot of things that other legislatures have toted is that law enforcement saying, oh well, we'll see what happens on the federal level. Well, okay, the wheels are in motion as as we see, so I'm curious, very curious.
Yes, yes. Uh,
Timing is interesting,
I,
I
I,
agree. I know.
I could see, especially this push for any of the states that have already legalized medical or decriminalized to a certain extent, and maybe haven't gone full rec or something like that, but but still, at least, pardon, expunge any simple possession. And like I say, when we talk simple possession, we're talking 28 grams or less in most cases, depending on the state, depending on I believe it's significantly higher in Ohio. I think it was like 100 grams or more, maybe 200 grams. Actually, it was somewhere around 3.5 ounces. Yeah, I forget what the exact number of grams was,
Hmm.
but somewhere around that range. But anyway, um, nonviolent offenses, they should all have their records cleared. That's my position on it.
Yeah, I'm echoing that.
Let me go ahead and take another peek at here. There we
Ina says
go.
that she hopes Smoke the Vote gets out info to voters. Agreed with that. Yeah.
I'm hoping that people will look at it and get some of the information we've been able to glean. We're hoping to get some more. But here I want to just point out NORML National has issued a statement regarding the president's plan to pardon those who with low-level marijuana convictions. This is by our executive director, Eric Galtieri, in response to the statement. Quote, many of the efforts taken and proposed by the president today are long overdue. For nearly 2 years, NORML has called upon the administration to fulfill the president's campaign promise to provide relief to those stigmatized with low-level cannabis convictions. We are pleased that today President Biden is following through with his pledge and that he is also encouraging governors to take similar steps to ensure that tens of millions of Americans with state-level convictions for past marijuana crimes can finally move forward with their lives. Since 1965, nearly 29 million Americans have been arrested for marijuana-related violations, for activities that the majority of voters no longer believe ought to be a crime. Moving forward, the administration must work collaboratively with congressional leadership, let me get that one out, to repeal, one more time with the water, excuse me, repeal America's failed marijuana criminalization laws. Nearly half of voters now agree that legalizing marijuana ought to be a priority for Congress. Now, I'm going to state that again. Ought to be a priority for Congress. Not just on the list. It should be a priority for Congress. And such action can only be taken by descheduling cannabis. Rescheduling is not going to make it, not going to happen. Descheduling is the only way that would actually happen. And repealing it from the U.S. Controlled Substances Act, thereby regulating it in a manner similar to alcohol. Congress should be inspired by the administration's actions today to act quickly and send legislation to the president's desk that would help close this dark chapter of our history. So, I love his wording at times, many a times. I like listening to Eric's responses because, again, he's saying it's about time. You've been promising this for a while. This is like the dark chapter of our history. Well, gosh, Joey made it. Hey, Joey, good to see you, my friend. All right.
That's the little dance for Joey. What's up, Joey? What's going on? Good to see you. Good to see you. Good to see you, Joey.
Oh man, I'm sorry about this frog in my throat tonight. That is Eric's take on it. And again, since 1965, nearly 29 million Americans have been arrested for marijuana-related violations. So let's dig a little bit deeper onto this one. And now I think I have my share screen that I can just click tab. Boom! There we go. Got it again. Oh, me and my dumb boom. I got nothing going on here.
God, boom!
Boom! I saw this one posted and had to go look at it a little bit closer. A site called Vox.com. I've heard of them before, but I couldn't tell you anything about them. Title of the article, The Most Important Part of Biden's Surprise Marijuana Announcement. And is subtitled, The Scope of Federal Pardons is Relatively Limited, but Descheduling the Drug Could Be Another Story.
Mm-hmm.
So that's some of the things that I've actually heard. Matter of fact, I was visiting somebody today, and they said, I heard, his pardons aren't going to affect anybody, because to get federal charges, it's not just simple possession. He kind of got me there a little bit. I'm like, and I didn't go looking into it when I got back, but I do know this will affect people in Washington, D.C. Because if you're in Washington, D.C. and get caught with simple possession, you're arrested under federal charges. So this will affect, and I think we'll see that in this article here that we're going to look at a little bit later. But otherwise, it affects about 6,500 federally charged people. Now, this is, I don't want to say a long article. Let me go ahead and copy the link for you and drop it in the chat. There we go. All right, and I don't really want to go reading every bit of it, but, in a surprise move just a month before the midterm elections, somebody mentioned interesting timing. Ina did.
Mm-hmm. And Josh looks like he wants to run for governor 2020.
he has been promoting himself as a write-in.
There you go.
For governor, he has in protest of not liking the choices available. So he's
Right on,
inviting.
man.
I believe he's inviting folks to also write in Josh for governor. So
We
Josh
got
Griffin,
Do
there we
Work Media
go.
Charleston says Biden is hungry for votes.
And let me just go ahead and share that. Josh Griffin for governor 2022.
Go ahead, Josh. Go ahead, Josh.
There we go. Federal simple possession is very vague. Okay. Some attorneys saying it is defined as up to 30 pounds is simple possession. Okay.
Oh,
So
that's interesting.
it's not the way first level simple possession in South Carolina is deemed of 28 grams or less. Um, uh, I'm going to skip down here a little bit. Biden's first step, second step after the announcement. Okay. After the announcement, other agencies quickly followed suit with next steps. Department of Justice issued a statement. There's a link in this article to that statement.
Yeah, this is a good one.
That it will expeditiously administer the President's proclamation of pardons and will work with the Department of Health and Human Services to launch that scientific review on how marijuana is scheduled under federal law. And then the question all of us are asking, was this announcement a massive leap forward for federal cannabis policy? Or is it more style than substance? An attempt to drum up support for Democrats ahead of the midterms? Here's a quick overview of Biden's action, federal cannabis policy, and administration's ever-evolving stance on marijuana legalization. Now, it's a good article. I'm going to read a bit more of it. I hope you can bear with me. Simple possession occurs when a person has a small amount of the substance on their person or available for their own use. The New York Times reported that the pardons will affect about 6,500 people convicted of simple marijuana possession between 1992 and 2021 under federal law, as well as thousands more under the D.C. Code. So there's quite a few again under the D.C. Code. White House officials said on a call with reporters. That's a comparatively small number. Most convictions for simple possession occur under state and local laws. According to the ACLU, there were 8.2 million marijuana arrests between 2001 and 2010. That's a 10-year span in there, folks. 88% of them for simply having marijuana. Okay. This is probably that information from that Tale of Two Cities two countries that we quote quite often. So
Yeah.
we can drill down on the numbers on some of that here in South Carolina for you. Just don't have that information in front of us tonight. Federal government often charges marijuana cases as conspiracies, meaning there was an agreement between two or more people to violate federal law rather than simple possession. So buying and selling is an agreement between two people to conspire to break the law. And that's where, again, they're charging people with that conspiracy. The New York Times reported that according to the U.S. Sentencing Commission, only 92 people were sentenced in federal marijuana possession charges in 2017 out of nearly 20,000 drug convictions. Now, the numbers are relatively small, but it's a big message. If the governors of other states and the attorney generals of other states will listen and follow through with the message, it could be big.
I agree with that.
Just imagine anybody who's ever gotten arrested for simple possession in South Carolina, all of a sudden finds out that, hey, I'm going to have that expunged from my record. I'm going to be pardoned for marijuana possession, and it's going to make it easier for me when I go for jobs, want to try. I mean, hell, in the military or government positions, fuck your security clearances. That's gone. People are trying to get student loans. People are trying to get public housing. It is a roadblock in a lot of people, a lot of ways. People, our system is is not there to help rehabilitate. It's there to freaking chain you down and make your life more difficult. I hate to admit it, and that's the wrong way to do it. You know. Anyway, sorry about my little rant there.
There's nothing wrong with a
Ah.
rant. I mean, it's true. It's true. Like we really need our governor to step into that space as well. I mean, it's not something that is, you know, it's, to me it's kind of like it's a no-brainer. And I know that's me saying that. That's me saying that it's a no-brainer, but at the same time, there are ways for us to look at this and to follow suit and to make some efforts. Like if you're going to have like the attempt at like that medical marijuana bill, right? Even though we know how that kind of stalemated out, it's still something that says this is a step in that direction. Like for instance, the medical marijuana bill was not like advantageous for the people. So why not couple it at least with something that would be advantageous for South Carolinians as a whole? You know, like there needs to be some kind of complement that if you're going to have such a strict marijuana like element, then why not follow suit? Why not pardon people? Why not give something to the community? Like why not do that?
Absolutely, absolutely. Um, but I don't. I definitely don't see. Even in the election cycle, I don't see. Excuse me, McMaster changing his tune on it. He's already kind of
Right.
accused Joe Cunningham of being a frat boy for opening a beer on the congressional floor, which probably wasn't the smartest thing to do. But cocky freshman legislator. You know, I've seen legislators do worse. And then, and also that, and talking about his marijuana policy, and like he's like, we don't need this frat boy as a governor. Um, and then
Which is also played out because isn't he a part of a fraternity? Isn't McMaster a part of a fraternity? I'm pretty sure that I'm let me fact check myself before I say this, but I am pretty sure.
he's probably more referring to the youngish behavior, but
No,
yeah, I
of
wouldn't.
course, but right, another example of him utilizing like stereotypes and utilizing like these elements that's not indicative of a good leader. Like that's not something to be using as a generalization. So let me, keep me honest out here, y'all. But I'm gonna fact check that, but I'm pretty sure. So it's like frat boy, like that. Those are your kind, brother. Like what are you talking about?
Uh, yeah, we'll have to keep us posted on that. Keep us posted. Um, I sidetracked. Oh yeah, I mean, am I thrilled with our selections? No, I'm not really thrilled with our selection, but we have somebody running for governor for South Carolina that claims they will do everything they can to, end the prohibition of cannabis in South Carolina. I'm an issue voter. I mean, I don't align with either of the parties, to be quite honest with you. Um, I think they're both pretty darn corrupt. But anyway, so I have to go with what I see the issues are, and we've got we've got legislators or candidates actually talking about marijuana. In this year and last, I believe was last year, we actually had the first mention of marijuana in a positive light ever in Congress. Um, it was somewhere in the past couple of years. So, we're actually making some progress, and we're starting to get both sides of the aisle. Because again, I view this as a nonpartisan subject, nonpartisan issue. Unfortunately for voters, it tends to be the left that seems to be more supportive of reforming marijuana laws than the right does at the moment. I'd love to see the right catch up because in South Carolina, I don't think we're going to really change marijuana laws until a couple things happen. One, we get changes at federal level. Two, we get the controlling party of the state to actually sponsor pro-marijuana legislation, marijuana reform legislation. That's the only way it's going to happen. Josh will, if elected governor, legalize cannabis and mushrooms. So just want to make sure that, if your politics lean that way.
He also said he would throw a big party.
Well, they all do that. Yeah,
yeah, they definitely do that.
But they don't all have cannabis and mushrooms at them. That would definitely be an interesting party, I must say. Josh, thank you for that. Appreciate it. I'm starting to think about writing in your name there. I'm thinking about it. Let me click back to my banners button over here and see where I've wandered off to. Oh, okay. I'm going to get back over here to the article because we really want to kind of finish this up a little bit. Time-wise, 7:31. Was there a bill to legalize cannabis? Does this mean weed is legal now? I'll answer them real quick. There are bills to deschedule cannabis, and this announcement does not make weed legal. Federal marijuana legalization has essentially been stopped in its track, in part because of the complexities of adopting banking regulation and criminal justice reform to accompany legal weed, even though public opinion, even among Republican voters, and state policies are on board with legalization. However, under the Controlled Substances Act, I mean, this thing is a devious freaking act. Marijuana is classified as Schedule 1, no medical use. Fentanyl, which is Schedule 2. Rescheduling marijuana for research is an oft-repeated promise by Biden's presidential campaign. Again, wrong move if they would just reschedule for researching. Biden's call for a review of marijuana scheduling should dramatically reshape federal policy and ultimately clear the way for legalization, but only if it is removed from the law entirely, not just rescheduling as a Schedule 2 drug. Okay, so just we're kind of clear there. Rescheduling, even I think I've heard them talking about trying to create a Schedule 6. There's five levels of the schedule, and I've heard someone, I don't know, trying to create Schedule 6. Put it on Schedule 6. So anyway, meantime, there are several pieces of federal legislation attempting to address the myriad of issues around cannabis. As we've talked about a number of times, the MORE Act, the Marijuana Opportunity Reinvestment and Expungement Act, which came out of the House and has been voted out of the House and over in the Senate. The Safe Banking Act, again, we talk about that quite often because it actually puts a target on the back of a lot of the dispensaries and places like that. They have to deal in cash. They have to hire armored cars to transport cash to the government to pay their taxes, because the government says that the banks should get in trouble if they handle this tainted money. The States Reform Act, of course, we know that's Nancy Mace's and the Republican side's version to deschedule, and also then the Cannabis Administration and Opportunity Act, a sweeping bill that aims to delist marijuana. So the MORE Act, States Reform Act, and the COA, Cannabis Administration Opportunity Act, all relatively similar, descheduling bills, varying tax rates and some other fine wording and blah, blah, blah. But for the most part, kind of stopped in their tracks at the moment with this. What this is they don't know whether Biden's announcement will goose reform in Congress, and that remains to be seen, although the action undoubtedly is a massive boost to the quest to the end of federal prohibition. This goes into a couple of other things. Didn't Biden fire people for smoking weed? Yes, some people were dismissed. I thought Biden was tough on crime. Biden's freaking 1995, 94 crime bill was a freaking disaster. Whoop. We lost Vaughn for a moment there. And part of the reason why I really didn't think he would ever go through with any of this is because he didn't want to maybe admit that he was wrong with his crime bill. I don't know. How many people are 3 strikes, which is a crime bill thing, because of weed? Mushrooms not legal? Well, depending on the mushrooms, I like that one. I know, Mitch, I'm going to bring this up real quick, just because I hate to admit it, but Ina said we need a ballot initiative in South Carolina. South Carolina's constitution does not allow for voter initiative at the state level. We can do city level, municipal level, but not the state level. So ballot initiatives, at least not with any legislative power. Tom Davis had submitted a bill, which I think was sort of like in case his medical bill didn't pass, and he was trying to get this other bill to go through that said it should go onto the ballot on whether South Carolina should have medical marijuana or not, but it was a non-binding referendum. So it was just an advisory referendum. It has no legislative or binding powers to them, unfortunately. Especially since I'm seeing, I think, 4 states on the ballot this year that are taking opportunity to let the voters vote on whether marijuana should be legal in their states. So yeah, those states can because their constitution allows it. Ours does not. Let me go ahead and turn that back off here real quick. And I think she's coming back. Look at that.
Turn. I had to do some quick mommy duties, y'all.
Okay. Let me finish this up real quick so we can get to our next segment here. Under the Reagan administration, just a no. Okay, here's a little bit where they're talking about the Comprehensive Crime Control Act, the crime bill. It doesn't give me a year on here. He also sponsored and co-authored the Anti-Drug Abuse Act of 1986. I don't think I knew that one, which ratcheted up the penalties for drug crimes. Whether his thinking has evolved, let's hope it has over the years. It sure seems to after this most recent statement that no one should be in prison for simple marijuana use and possession, especially after authoring things like the Anti-Crime Abuse Act of 1986.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that there's definitely something to say about, and once again, this is something Ina said earlier about the timing, and I'm kind of curious at too, and not to say that I have an answer for that, but I'm curious of the timing, just because, yes, I do think people can change their minds and evolve and grow. People can definitely do that. I think politics largely is just another word for strategy. So, there's an element there that I'm always like, what is the strategy here? And one thing for sure that we know is that, hey, you said you were going to do something, so do something. Like, this is what you got a vote for. Like for some people, it's like, this is what you got to vote for. You need to make a move and you need to do something. And sometimes I don't even know if that's because there's even some staffers that were fired from their job, so at the White House, because of marijuana. So, what are you going to do for the people that were let go under your administration about that? Like that, it's a very,
good, valid
very
question there. These people that he let go, now that he's pardoning, what's he going to do for them, or if anything? Now this does talk a little bit about years later, he softened his stance on drugs. In 2007, he backed the Second Chance Act, which provides monitoring and counseling services to former prison inmates. In his last few years in the Senate, he supported eliminating the sentencing disparity between crack and powder cocaine. And in 2020, the number of Americans who supported legalization of cannabis reached a record high, according to a Gallup poll, with 68% supporting marijuana legalization. So, yeah, when Biden launched his presidential campaign, his platform reflected the nation's changing attitude. So that's why I said the other day, boy, it's about time, because it has been 2 years. It was part of the campaign promises, and it didn't take a lot of work, but it finally
Right.
came out. It didn't take a lot of work to print up this short
Exactly.
little statement.
Exactly. And
But
and yet, like, I agree. That doesn't it once again, it doesn't feel like a lot of work, and yet, as we also know on the other end of that, is that of course there is, and once again, I think you just got the comment of the night, which is timing. What shifted, what changed, what made it be that, like, as just like you said, Scott, like, here are three things that could have just simply been done earlier. So why wasn't it? So I'm curious to see what else is what other announcements are going to be made around this time. Like, what's going to be linked in conjunction with this from the administration.
well, let me finish up. It looks like the last paragraph in here. So, is this a ploy to get voter support for the midterm elections, or is it a real shift in political and policy direction? So, Nashit Reddy, there's the CEO and co-founder of A Golden State and Satye Capital, has served as an advisor to Senator Cory Booker of New Jersey on cannabis policy. Reddy was pleasantly but not entirely surprised by Biden's announcement. His quote is, "We're just a few weeks away from the midterm elections, so I do think there's a bit of strategic policy play with this. That being said, it's an exciting step in the right direction for those who are facing the negative consequences of unfair policing regarding cannabis." Um, Attorney David Holland, who's a partner at Prince Loeb Thai LLP and executive director of Empire State NORML, sees it as Biden moving toward cementing his progressive legacy rather than attempting to gain support, and says Biden doesn't stand to gain anything by it per se. This is only the midterm. He's got another couple of years to go. I think he's trying to align himself with progressive politics that undo at least some of the harms of the drug war, and to set up a platform for 2 years from now that shows him to be a leader in causes relating to equity, justice, and economic development, and so on. News of the pardons is dominating media coverage, but Holland says that the most meaningful part of the announcement is the review and possible change of the federal status of cannabis as a controlled substance. He's setting the stage for future action. So anyway, I thought that was a really good article. Again, if you need the link, let me know. But I did share it earlier in the chat.
Yeah.
Josh also mentioned that with the economy tanking, this is a new source of tax income for the government. Very well could be. I mean, it should have been for a long time. They're losing other revenues. Good example that I'm seeing is where they're legalizing cannabis. Pharmaceutical sales are down.
Mm-hmm.
Alcohol sales are down.
Mm-hmm.
Mind you, I don't think either of those things are a bad thing, but their government probably wants to make up what they're losing in tax revenue.
That also reminds me of our last lobby day where we had a Republican legislature tell us that in order to really win over Republicans, or not even win over, that's pretty strong, but to even have something that Republicans in South Carolina would to be interested in, it would have to be something that economically makes sense. Like, I don't know if you remember that conversation, Scott, but I found that to be interesting because I remember I asked a question that said, why do you have to wait on medical marijuana to be approved before decriminalizing marijuana? And this answer I got was because that's just how they felt. And then the conversation evolved into, you know, a lot of Republicans within our state legislature don't even want to look at proposed bills or things of that nature because they're not seeing the economic value in it, the tax element and things of that nature. So I think that that's interesting information, especially with what Josh is saying with the economy. And I don't even look at the current economy because I definitely am still looking at kind of the long game of economy and just the evolving landscape of our economy and what that looks like and how cannabis can play a role in that. So it's interesting that we were told that little tidbit of information when it just seems like, well, if you want to benefit within like taxes, why not create a bill that surrounds that?
Right, right.
Doesn't make
And that,
sense.
I mean, that's a very interesting, valid point there. There's no money in it for our legislature for our government by simply decriminalizing. There is money in having it criminalized. You know, matter of fact, they could lose a lot of money by decriminalizing. Um, you know, because how much money is trickled down from the federal government to the state government for law enforcement and uh, building of new courthouses and prisons and you know all that stuff is paid for by taxpayers, and there's a lot of money in it. Um, where decriminalizing, it's going to be like, well, hold it. Who's going to fill the prison beds if we decriminalize simple possession of cannabis? If we can't find somebody with a little freaking seed, if we can't pretend that our dog smelled some weed and be able to drag them out of their car and arrest them, who's gonna fill our freaking prisons and pay for them? Yeah. So um,
Yep, that's so unfortunate.
it is. It is.
That's so it's so unfortunate. So unfortunate.
All right. Before I kind of start trickling on to the next part here, I'm going to ask if there's any questions or comments or things about Biden's statement and all the fun stuff we just talked about.
Okay, I'm going to check out Shane Bush. Josh, thanks for letting us know the comments.
Hmm. I did hear something Shane mentioned. I believe I forget the date. Sometime in February, he's planning some sort of marijuana support rally at the Capitol. His comment that I saw on a video was it's going to be a silent rally. There's not going to be a podium or speakers. No legislators or organizations or anybody will be um, uh, acknowledged. Um, so I think it basically is to be a presence. um, and said he would share more information on that in the upcoming future. So we did pick our lobby day. We'll get to that a little bit later. So let me kind of bypass that before I get sidetracked. All right. I don't see any other comments about Biden's down here in the Biden statement down here in the chat. So let me kind of move on to some of our state legislative news. And this is kind of a crossover subject, obviously. The midterm elections are on November 8th. They're coming up in less than a month. We have some good response to some of our questionnaires, and we'll remind you a bit about the Smoke the Vote Guide a little bit later. But the reason I call this a crossover subject is because we do have some federal candidates on the ballot. Don't forget to go to, I was going to say, let me do this. Don't forget to vote.normal.org. Go there, fill in your address. It will tell you who your legislators are and what races are in your districts. There are a couple of federal level races going on, and I don't. Actually, I'm going to open up my voter guide here real quick just so I know who is who. South Carolina. There we go. As you know, we've got our governor's race, so everybody's going to vote in that, but Lieutenant Governor, that's kind of attached. Attorney General, as you know, I'm very upset that nobody is running against Attorney Alan Wilson. Please, somebody, please. But we do have, looks like 7 or 8, 7 U.S. House districts that are up for grabs at the moment. House District 1, that's the district I'm in, Nancy May, Sandy Andrews, and Joseph Odo. I live here and I haven't even heard of the guy. As you can see in our voter guide, they both have good ratings. Nancy, obviously, because she has sponsored a descheduling bill. And we know nothing's going to happen with it at this point in time, and nothing will happen until after the elections, if anything happens. And Annie Andrews, who has, and I have to go back and double check, has answered our questionnaire. So you can find out her position on that if you're in this district. House District 2, and that we have Judd Larkins, who's running up against Joe Wilson. Joe Wilson on our guide has a D-. The only way he could get any further down is if he actually sponsored anti-marijuana reform legislation, tried to make it even tougher, whatever. Judd's a young fella and has, trying to remember if he was on our program before or not, but I know he would be. House District 3, Jeff Duncan, again a D rating. We have no one running against him that I'm aware of. House District 4 with William Timmons. We have a write-in candidate, Lee Turner, who is a cannabis supporter. Unfortunately, the Smoke the Vote guide does not list write-in candidates on here. Otherwise, we'd be seeing Josh's name up here at the top. But we do have a candidate, write-in candidate Lee Turner, if you're interested, for House District 4, who is a cannabis supporter. House District 5 is Ralph Norman. We have 2 candidates running against them. Neither of these candidates have answered our questionnaire. And Ralph has a C-, so he could do better. House District 6, which is just off the side of District 1 here. Jim Clyburn is a supporter. You can see his voting record here on things like the Safe Banking Act and the MORE Act, the Medical Marijuana Research Act, and smart key votes in the past, blah, blah, blah. He has been a supporter for a long time. But he does have an opponent, Dwayne Buckner, in that district. And then last but not least at federal level is House District 7 with Russell Fry and Darrell Scott. Again, I have no grading on either of these 2 at this point. I am not going to go down through the whole state, and that's why when you do go onto the site, first thing you want to do is go to this section right here, fill in your address, and it will tell you who your legislators are and what district you're in and that kind of fun stuff. Oops. But I will scroll through real quick just to show you, starting at State House 1. We have a number of races with no contest whatsoever. So we have, like, good examples. House District 3, Jerry Carter. Jerry's a B-, but he's a B. He's for medical use. Neil Collins, District 5, medical use. We've got some hope in some of those where there are no opponents in the races. At least we have some support for medical in those. Others you'll see here, District 7, District 8, we have some people that have either answered our questionnaire or been graded, and others that have not. Generally, that's because somebody has not answered the questionnaire. And some of them, like this, you might see they have medical use listed. Generally, that's because one of them is an incumbent. I don't know why it's on both of these. There's a House member there, so that, I went too far. And this one, I don't see why they are listed as a medical use. That's why we always ask for resources when people are suggesting updates and changes. I'll mention that right here, right now. You will see, know this candidate's position on marijuana? Tell us. And that's a way for you all to click that link if you have some information. But when you do click on that, it is going to ask you for sources and additional info. We do definitely need the sources when you're sharing information about the position of marijuana from by these legislators. So some are better than others as far as our grading, and some of our districts are covered and graded better than others. You'll see there's still a lot of gray that we don't know. We haven't gotten the answers from. But I was pretty excited when we were starting this earlier in the year, and then again, just as they were open up for the midterms, we've gotten a few responses, and we're pretty happy with that. Nobody's running against Tommy Pope in 47, House District 47. We really wish somebody would again there. Too late to get anybody else in. All right, that's enough rambling on about our Smoke the Vote guide. I will one last time kind of click on that button though, just to remind you that you can find the Smoke the Vote guide at vote.normal.org. All right. Last thing I want to kind of talk about under, oh, I'm not there yet, so I'm going to kind of hide this. What if I can just hide it this way? Nope, it's still there. No, I'll bring that up in a minute. All right, let me kind of move along because we are right where I need to be. Chapter business. We are moving on. And the first thing I've kind of put on our chapter business, and I don't know if it's the only thing in there, not first thing of two that we've kind of put on here. And I've brought this up before, and I'm bringing it up again, and I must admit that I am really bad at organizing and keeping in touch with folks. We are in need of help in organizing our organization. This was a post that I posted back in June. I just wanted to kind of share it again. We have had a couple of people recently contact me and ask about volunteering. And part of the problem is I'm really bad about following up. So finally, I think it was Tuesday, probably yesterday, I finally got back to a bunch of people. One person looking to be a sponsor. We would love to have a sponsor of our organization. We'd like to have a bunch of sponsors for our organization. And a couple of others were people that were looking into options of volunteering. So, like I said, I've been really bad about it over the year. We have a volunteer form that people can fill out. And if you fill that out, good chances you're going to get lost in the abyss. Every now and again, I do visit that form, and I don't know what to do with it, to be quite honest with you. I just don't know what to do with it. So, one of the first things we're actually looking for, let me see if I can zoom in here a little bit. Oh, wrong screen, that didn't work. This screen. There we go. Is a volunteer coordinator. I really need somebody that can help me organize the volunteers and help them and help in various duties, whether it's volunteers for petition signing, which we aren't currently doing, but that's something I would love to get back up and running, is petitions to decriminalize in municipalities across the state. Volunteer coordinator would be very a key role in organizing those type of collections. Booth attendance, when we set up our booth at different locations. Good example, we are planning to be later this month at the Democratic Party's political jamboree, rub some elbows with some candidates and some legislators, and talk about marijuana with them. We've got our board members manning the booth at that particular one, but there have been times where we've been at different shows, reggae fests, things like that. Even like recently when we were down at the beach, we could usually use some volunteers to help us set up and tear down our tent and many times just help us hand out brochures and chat with the public. Um, the other thing I'd like to talk about is an event coordinator. We are already starting to plan, let me put it that way. We've picked a date of January 25th for our next lobby day. I do need to start filling out the paperwork and forms to request that date officially and a location from the State House. We will be getting on that shortly. And Vaughn, correct me. It was the 25th, right? It wasn't the
Yes,
week
it was. I couldn't find the mute button. Yes.
Okay, it wasn't the week before, I don't think. Okay.
No, it was towards the end of January. Yep.
So there's a good example of where we're going to be needing some volunteers to help us as we get there, even somewhat preparing before we get there. Good example on this one. I'm going to hope that Josh Griffin is still in the area and not already governor at that point, that he might be available to help us because he lives right in that area. And he was a big help last time we were up there. But yeah, volunteers to help us haul stuff in, haul stuff out, hold signs. Many times, especially at a rally like that, volunteers to hold signs. I'm going to grab one because it's right there. There. Can you do that? Can you hold a sign? We can use you. All right. That's my little rant on that one real quick.
And you know what's great about having volunteers that hold the signs is that usually they don't like fall down when the wind blows because
when the wind blows. I'm not going to go over all these. As a matter of fact, what I am going to do is just share this link with you because I see it's already 8:01. I'm going to run through the rest of our call and try not to be too brief about it. But let me kind of go. You already know we need help. Another thing I want to pop up here is the reminder that the holidays are just around the corner. Holiday gift giving with memberships from NORML and merchandise from NORML helps support our organization. Our featured item that just went out in our newsletter today is, again, our Dope Man board game. I will let you know there are only like 9 of these left in stock. We bought out the manufacturer for the most part when they went out of business, and so there are only 9 of these left available. They will become collectible. This from the guy that collects marijuana-themed board games. They will become collectible someday. Not maybe necessarily valuable, but collectible. So I just wanted to kind of throw that out there. Don't forget to visit our website at scnormal.org and visit our shops to kind of support us through the holidays. Another thing that will be coming up right around Thanksgiving, I don't know if it'll be before, it might be. We will be releasing our new 2023 memberships. So we will have our new redesigned card. This is the 2022 card. We will be getting a redesign for 2023. And again, great for gift giving and helping support the cause. Let me go ahead and turn off this screen share. There we go. Woo! Last but not least, okay, I'm going to click on this button that says skip. Committee reports. We do not have committees, and again, as we talked about our volunteer needs and stuff like that, we originally had planned to have some certain committees to help us grow the organization. A sponsorship committee, a membership committee, a volunteer committee, a couple of different things like that. They have not happened, and they are still in the back of my mind that someday we will be able to put that stuff into play, but not today. So we're skipping that. And last but not least, I do want to kind of touch briefly on our upcoming events. Our next event, well, like I mentioned, we will be, Vaughn and Kristen and I will be at Blue Jam on October 22nd. So I'm just asking October 22nd event details. I just see that there. I'm not sure if you're aware of this or not. We originally had our October 22nd event to be scheduled a picnic in North Charleston. We saw this political event become available for a minimal fee and the opportunity to talk directly with legislators and candidates. So what we'll be doing is going to Blue Jam. And let me find you that link in case you're interested in attending. And if you're in the Charleston area at the time, as I spell it wrong. And different parties in different counties do these kind of things throughout the state. And to be quite honest with you, I wouldn't care which party. If somebody wants to sponsor us at some other events throughout the state on either side of the aisle, we would try our best to get there or get somebody there to take care of it. So here is a link for the event that we'll be attending on the 22nd. And if you scroll down toward the bottom, there's a link to get tickets at half price. I think currently, yeah, like $15 or something like that. Beyond that, let me go back to my banners here. So that's what we're going to do. We've been at Blue Jam at least twice. I remember somewhere I've got a picture of me with some presidential candidates at one of them a few years back. No big thing. Most of it is in the booth. But anyway, the other thing I want to mention, as I've already mentioned here earlier, get back to comments, take this one down, is our lobby day. We will be in Columbia on Wednesday, January 25th. It's Wednesday the 25th. We're going to kind of copy the format as best as we can from what we did this year in February, but just try and get it a little bit earlier toward the beginning of session, which, as you probably may know, session starts on the 10th of January. So we'll be there in front of the legislators within the first 2 weeks of session. All right. I am going to click that button off now too. And Vaughn, what do you say you wrap us up here tonight? Say good night to these fine folks.
Of course. Thanks so much, y'all. It's always awesome to see y'all in the chat, and thanks for showing up every single week and chatting up with us. And shout out to everybody on YouTube, Instagram. Make sure that you're checking us out on Instagram at SC Normal. We appreciate y'all more than you know, and we're going to keep on fighting that good fight. So thank you so much. You have a great night, and peace out.
Night all.